And Kim Craven, I am. So let's just officially do the roll call with the recording. Lisa Martin
Yes.
and Kim Craven, I am here. So we will start the meeting with the first order of business. The minutes that are attached. We have April minutes in the packet. Robin, did you intend for us to?
Oh, no, I think that's a mistake. Sorry about that.
Okay. So we
I'll
don't.
add the, I'll just add the July to your next meeting.
Okay, so we will pass over the first item, which is the approval of the minutes. And the second item is public comment. And you'll notice that we have a public comment in the beginning and in the end. And the reason for that is so that we can hear questions, thoughts from the community at the beginning of the meeting. And then after hearing our meeting, it didn't seem that I would want to wait until our next meeting to hear if there was something that might come up. So we'll give you some time at the end to have some comments as well, so that we can keep tracking what thoughts you have, so that in between meetings we can gather information in a expeditious manner, because the budget season is already back upon us here. And so if we could, any members of the public that would like to raise their hand to speak in public comment before we have our discussion. So I am not seeing any hands. Am I missing any, Robin?
No, I'm not seeing any hands as well.
Okay. And just want to make sure here Nancy is on, so we can move into the discussion of the FY25 budget. Nancy, I know that you attached for us the records as of August 8th, and it does say that there's it's not totally closed. Are you able to give us an update on the FY25 budget, the balances, any encumbrances, and what you see that might change in the near future?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
So FY25 is really close to being fully completed. We do have a few grants we're still looking at to make sure we have everything allocated properly. The ones I've looked at this week or last week don't need to affect the budget, but I just don't want to say it's final and then find a small adjustment I have to make. So I don't expect big changes to this, honestly. I think we're pretty close to where it's going to be. We have a remaining balance of $2,880,000. I still have to reconcile the PO encumbrance line. You'll see on the summary page, if you look at that document, that there's a column called POs encumbered to FY26, and these are POs that are where items were purchased but bills not received till next year, so or currently in 26. So that total, I just have to finalize that number. But again, we're close, and the auditors have been here this past week, and that's going really well. We had, pulling a lot of information for them, providing them with data, and that'll be ongoing for a few, another month or so, I would guess. But it's really early to have an audit for 25, so it was a bit of a scramble for a lot of reasons, but we did well, and they're not on site anymore, so that's good. We're real close to closing out this year.
Okay. So the items that you say for the encumbrances, could you just walk us through that a little bit more? When you've got the PO, it's open for FY25, you purchase the items, but the invoices aren't coming in. Is that due to the vendor not catching up on the invoices, are what is causing that process to be delayed a little?
I mean, sometimes the budget's open until June 30th, so if somebody say places an order with, I'll just use a simple example of WB Mason order for office supplies, that order might go in on, that's needed and the supplies haven't arrived and the bill hasn't arrived. So it was ordered before June 30th. It could be services, like we have final bills coming in for, say, tuitions or things of that nature, or a service provider hasn't gotten us a bill yet, that PO would roll and we've obligated the money. So the money's been obligated to a vendor. We're certainly able to provide the list too as to what it is. This is actually, I think, a fairly low number for us in general. I kind of did push back a lot and said, if you don't need to order it this year, don't order it. So there wasn't a lot of last minute ordering or any of that kind of thing. So that's I think it's a pretty low number. The other thing that's happened with encumbrances is that DESI is getting put a deadline on the spending of those. So if we roll it over, they're requiring that it be completely paid by December 31st. So if you do have an order and for some reason it's got to extend, that's gonna be the deadline for keeping that open. So that's relatively new.
Okay. Is that something that is then shared with the vendors to let them know too that you have a impending deadline that's imposed on you by somebody else?
I think from my perspective, where I sit, I let the people, so there's usually a department head associated with the purchase order. I let them know that that's coming up. So if you have an open PO, this PO is open still, what's going on with it? Are we going to use it? Are we not using it? Can we close it out?
Thank you.
And they work with their vendors as they need to.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation.
There's also a waiver. So if you do have something that comes up that's really insurmountable as far as getting it paid by December 31st, then we can request a waiver through DESI.
Okay, thanks. Lisa, I see your hand.
So I want to go back a step and go back to the auditor. Nancy, can you explain so that we have it on public what the auditor is actually looking at and giving us advice on and things?
Sure. So they're essentially auditing our financial statements. So from the top level, they're looking at, do the numbers on the financial statement make sense? And the way they do that is they look at a wide variety of things. They look at how many, they'll drill down into a subset of some bills, some deposits, things of that nature to ensure that those numbers are accurate and look for any discrepancies. They look at timing, so will look at the payments of the June 30 to make sure they're not July and that type of thing. They might make adjustments in that area. There's other numbers that we provide to them, such as a list of fixed assets, compensated absences, which are for people that may have benefits like a sick leave buyback or that type of thing. We have to give them a list of all that outstanding as of June 30th, and they review that. So really every number that's on the financial statement, they're kind of ensuring is correct. And they also look at the payroll process, warrants that are signed, make sure those are signed. Again, a subset. They're not looking at every single bill, every single warrant. They're just doing a subset. The other big part of the audit is that if we have a grant that exceeds a threshold, then it becomes a separate audit for that one grant. So for instance, special education allocation grant, that's a very large grant for the district. They'll look specifically at that and drill into that and do a subset of bills for that, a subset of payments for vendors or for employees out of that grant and look in more detail at that. So we get a separate report, a single audit for that. Any journal transactions, again, they'll look at a subset of that. So that it's really a pretty comprehensive, and this is their second visit for this year. They came in April, I believe it was April, and went through a lot of that work at that time, and then came back again in the last week. So.
And this happens yearly. right, for them?
Correct.
Like, I know that they came back twice now.
Yep.
And a final presentation does get sent to the school committee.
Yeah, once they finalize the audit, we'll provide a copy to the school committee, and we put it on the website. Actually, all our prior audits are out on our website as well. So they're available, and they will come and do a presentation for school committee if that's something of interest. I don't know that we've had it every year, but most years we do.
All right, that's
Thank
it, Kim. That's all I have. Thank you, Nancy. Sorry
Sure.
for putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay. No problem.
So I did have some more specific questions for you and the administration in general, just so that I'm clear and folks watching might have questions as well. So when I look at the remaining balances, not knowing exactly how much of the encumbrances will affect that, and looking at some of the line items that were both under and overspent, with the planning for the future, and I know you've extended it out for a number of years, making any adjustments that you might suggest we look at would be important for us to hear now, and just hearing information on areas that were underspent. And in particular for me, I just wanted to be clear on the insurance piece. I know that we had that rebate, for lack of a better word, that is or is not included in this.
It's not. It will be a portion of that returned funds came in and went to school choice. The exact amount that we took out of school choice initially is going back into school choice.
Yeah.
We did verify that was allowable because, again, it was prior year. And they acknowledged that we could do that. The balance is just a general fund revenue. So it is in our reporting of our revenues at the end of June. So there's a good chunk of money in there for that. I don't have it right in front of me, but I can get the number for you. But it's not in the expense side, it's in the revenue side. And what we're looking at in this packet right now is just the expenditure, the budget to actual spending.
So when we see the revenue side, it will reflect both the allocation to the general fund and to the school choice, but there was no fluctuation with the adopted budget or transfers or any of the line items in here to reflect that for the school choice.
Correct. School
Okay.
choice is a revolving fund. So the funds come in every year from students attending our district, and those are updated throughout the year as far as the actual students attending, and then a final number, and that goes, the revenue for that goes into the revolving fund for school choice and any spending out. So there's a money in and money out into that same, but again, not related to this
Budget.
this budget.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to press you on that, but I just want to make sure that everybody is clear of where the funds that were reimbursed went, and sort of the lack of impact, if you will, on this document for FY25 as it stands as a standalone document.
Correct.
Just so that we're
So
clear.
the short is approximately half of it is in return to school choice, and a half of it is returned to our revenue, which will end up in E&D.
Mhm.
So that's how it will get back out.
Okay.
Once that's certified.
And so the overall number in the insurance is probably something that is less able to be predicted by anyone here, because of just the fact that it's a benefit for employees. So that line item, again, being a little bit large, does impact the 2.8. But in any of the other categories, is there areas that we should be looking at with the administration, and superintendent, please jump in here, of areas that could be relooked at for moving the line items for next year? Do you want to start changing budget allocations? Is there anything that jumped out at you that needs to be handled a little bit differently moving forward as we start to look at the budget that we put together for 27.
I think what we do have to pay close attention to, and it will be part of my report on Tuesday night, is that, clearly the enrollment in the district is starting to drop, and there's always the question around, well, if the enrollment's dropping, why is the budget increasing? And the budget is in fact increasing in large part just due to some of the changes that we've experienced with special education, both in-district costs and out-of-district costs, and including transportation in that as well. So even though, again, the enrollments are dropping, the percentage of students that receive some type of specialized service, whether it be on an IEP for special education, Section 504, students that may need an accommodation because of a health or physical type of a disability or issue that they may be having at that point in time, such as a broken arm, or even the multilingual services now that are starting to increase in the district as well. So I think those are items that we have to pay close attention to, because as I've mentioned before, all three of those areas are areas that we don't have a choice in addressing. We have to address them, whether the money is there or not. We have to find a way to address them. And oftentimes that means dipping into the red or pulling from another area. Gary or Nancy, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
I guess the only thing I would say is that once I'll finalize this, and what I usually do look at as I go forward is I take a look at what was our FY25 budget, what did we end up spending, and what was our FY26 budget. And so if there's any places that I feel like we were overspent last year or we don't have enough budgeted, those are the areas I'll take a look at. So I usually do that by function, just because it's a little easier to look at that 4-digit code. So like in building maintenance, I happen to have that on my screen, 4220. We had a budget of X, we spent Y, and now next year, this is what we have allocated. And that tells me, because there are a few areas that I get nervous about. Sometimes utilities are one of them. And this year we did okay. I'm just going to take a look. But anyway, I'll look at each of those functions to see where I already know there's a problem. And when I do that, I'll share that with the committee as well, and the superintendent, obviously. So we can take a look at those areas that I think are going to be problematic potentially. Sometimes it's a one-time purchase and that's not going to recur or something along those lines, and we don't have a problem, but we kind of have to look at it in that way.
Okay. I appreciate that. So
Sure.
for tomorrow, Lisa, I'd just like to be able to share with the committee in my report, this reference to the FY25, that there are still some encumbrances out, maybe between now and then, Nancy, if you have even a rough order of magnitude on that for us about what that might start to look like. And then we'll look forward to what the superintendent has to share about his thoughts for building the budget forward. We do have some meetings coming up in September with the towns, so I think being able to have some time to analyze it, and if we can set a meeting, another meeting before then, I think that would be helpful. Hopefully everything will be a little closer to closing out, and we can start using this as a tool with the 26 and the projections that Nancy has already done for the 27 budget review.
That sounds good. Kim, did you need any materials from Nancy or any of the administration to help with that?
So for tomorrow, I don't believe that we do. I think this will be standalone, and I don't know if the superintendent was planning on sharing anything different or referencing anything different. But if there's a other reference document or anything that he's using, I would want to at some point add that to our collection of documents. I know that there's historical information that we can look at and projections. If that is something that Lisa, just thinking it through as we're chatting here, documents that I have access to and I'm using, they have at one point probably been in the public domain because I'm pulling them from different sources or Nancy's providing them. That might just be.
There is, like Kim, there's the repository that, I mean,
Right.
you have access to those in the Google Docs and everything. So there's a lot of older information in there. It's a matter of knowing which folder it may be in.
Right, and I'm looking at some of it, and if, I just want to make sure that anything that we're referencing in our meetings, that we make sure that the public has, like, I know they have this document, but if there's other documents that we might have, we just need to make sure that they do get put on the public side, and I know everyone's really good about that, it's very informative, but just help me to monitor that. I don't want to create something that we don't, share forward.
Sounds like a good plan. All right.
Okay, is there anything that anyone else wants to add from the administration side on the FY25? Okay, let's go ahead and discuss the FY26 budget. I know last time we talked, there was still some questions around, timing, usage, and things of that nature based on the supplemental. And I didn't know if there's been anything new that you've heard, Nancy, on that, and how that might be impacting the budget for the future.
I have not, to be honest. I haven't heard any changes, which I guess is a good thing. I do know that we had some allocations for some capital work. I'm still working on finding out how that's accessed. Again, like I said, we had auditors last week, so I didn't really get through to give you guys an update on 26. We're also still in the hiring process. I know we're getting very close to being there. So that changes the budget, obviously, when you don't have a position allocated, and if you don't know what step lane somebody's going to be hired, it's hard to get a real view of where we are. But shortly, I think we'll be in very good shape with that.
Okay, thank you for anticipating what my next question was. So I know that you are in flux and it is summer, and getting some of the information from the state does take a little bit of time. Hopefully that will catch up so that we will know, sort of that full impact. And I appreciate you reflecting on the hiring. I think that's something that once sort of everybody is in place that, probably into the school year, a couple weeks, if we can take a look at what the open position impact was and what the difference is, as you mentioned, as people come in, there's a range of hiring that they can come in at and what that will look like. And I know that will take you a little bit of time to put together. So, like I said, as the school year gets underway, if we can start to look at that and see what that looks like, hopefully it's not onto the side where it's going to push us red, that it's going to give a little bit of flexibility there, because I know that we pushed really hard and drove that budget down for last for this upcoming year. So the last ask of the towns to try to get that as low as possible, and I know that was impacting some of the operational pieces that the superintendent was looking for. So if we can find out if there's any sort of flexibility based on the hiring or not, either way, whatever you find out, it will be what it is. Numbers, it's math. So we look forward to hearing that. Lisa, did you have any questions or thoughts on us moving into the 26?
No. All I know is that it may be another difficult year. So
Okay.
we'll just have to prepare for that. That's all I have right now, Kim.
Okay. Thanks. So the next order of business for us is that we officially ask the full committee to appoint Carrie Battersby to fill the vacancy created when Randy Rush resigned from the Finance Committee. And here at the Finance Committee, ours is a recommendation. So I would like to just suggest in the motion, if there were to be one made, is that we are recommending this. And
I'll make a motion to recommend Carrie Battersby as a representative on the Finance Committee, on the Finance Subcommittee.
and I will second that.
All
Yeah.
right.
We will do a roll call. Lisa Martin
Yes.
and Kim Craven, I am a yes. So the next order of business is the community representatives. And I don't know if you've had opportunity to think this through at all, Lisa, since our last meeting. I did think about it some, and Robin did send me the prior volunteer interest application, if you will. Do you have a copy of that, Lisa?
I've seen it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've seen it.
So the way that it read last time, and I have it on my screen. I don't know if it's easier for me to share that with the committee or if it's easier for Robin to share that.
If you
You
could
can
share it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have it
you
at
can
my
share, Kim.
fingertips.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone just needs to someone just needs to approve me for that.
Okay, I think I can approve you. I just have to.
Yep, I just did. So you should be all set.
Okay.
Okay. Oops. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So I think we need to make a few changes. And we can just kind of discuss them here, and then maybe if there's general okay with it, then we can push this out to the communities. When it was first done, it was for Ashby to serve, and I would like to give the opportunity for each community to have a representative on the committee. And so we would need to change that language. And what are your thoughts?
It's not a voting representative. Correct. It's just like an advocate or somebody that would be able to speak during discussions. Is this
They could-
correct?
Yep, they could speak during discussions. It would just be another person within the community that could come forward with questions. You know, while we're expanding public comment, making sure that we have public comment, we can't necessarily, sort of have a full discussion during the public comment phase, but this person could be a liaison to gather some additional information and have a discussion point. And it would be not to, belabor our meetings, but just have the opportunity to give us a little bit more feedback. And they would be on these meetings. They wouldn't be in any of the executive sessions or the regular school committee meetings. It would just be that opportunity to have them participate.
We would not give them email or any of that, correct? They wouldn't have access to folders.
Correct.
Okay. I see the importance of it, Kim, and I'm just going to say my concern is that will it impede on the process of the Finance Committee? Or will it help us to understand? And by impeding, I don't want us to get sidetracked down a rabbit hole, if that makes sense. Because sometimes, like, we know the work that has to be done, kind of thing.
Right.
But getting community feedback is also vital. So that's I have a concern with that. I don't want extra pressures put on administration, you or I, with that. But I see where it's a complete benefit too. This is where I wish we had Carrie and Patrick to
Right.
balance us.
Well, I do have a finance subcommittee report tomorrow. During that report, I could bring this up as a topic and ask for more broad feedback. Maybe another thought that we could discuss is what if we, at a meeting, had more of an open forum for, a night to just allow people to ask us questions in a way that is more conversational than just the public input. And that, we wouldn't have to necessarily ask all the administration to come, but just have them have a conversation with the finance committee of questions that they would like to have answered, things that we can look at, to just give them an additional opportunity to converse with us, provide feedback in a way that, as you say, not to put more of a burden onto the administration, but just a way to gather that information.
Yes. And like bringing it up tomorrow in school committee, maybe, I mean, it could be a discussion in there, but I can see that discussion going longer. If you,
Well, we just won't let, we'll have to set a time,
Yeah.
because we do have a lot of business to go over tomorrow. But before we get too deep into the budget setting for the next cycle, I want to make sure that we have a really thoughtful avenue for the community to participate.
yes, exactly. I mean, there's discussions we can have around this, Kim, and figure out the proper ways to do it. I mean, and I don't know if there is a proper way. I mean, everyone has input on how things should be done,
Right.
but that community outreach and is vital to us. So,
And I was an attendee last year at some of the meetings, and I know that they were, at times not pleasant. And I can't put myself in your shoes because I wasn't on sort of this side of it then, but I want to make sure that we are opening those lines. And I'd love to hear from anyone on the administration thoughts. You experienced the meetings last year. You've experienced other budget seasons. I'd love to hear from you because you've been through this before as part of this process, and I have not.
So I would add that I do think it's good to have representation from the communities on the finance subcommittee, as long as, again, there's just clear guidelines around what is a person able to vote, is a person not able to vote. I know right now we're saying that the person would not be able to vote, but I would just say that it would need to be very clear. But I don't think it would be negative to have community representation on the finance subcommittee. I think if anything, it will help with being more transparent, or as transparent as possible with the budget, which is something that we try to do on an annual basis. But there is still complaints from the community on that. So I think something like this could potentially help that.
Okay. And any drawbacks, any hiccups that you think that we need to think about or anticipate? Anything from your experiences in the past?
The only potential drawback I see is that whether or not the other communities will want one as well. If they would want a community representative as well. That's the only thing that that I see as a potential drawback. But Again, when talking specifically about Ashby, you're also looking at the community that has the least amount of school committee representation as well. So this may help with that.
Okay. And perhaps the liaisons over the next few weeks in between the different meetings after we talk tomorrow would be able to talk to people that they know in the community and get some feedback from them as well. You know, we'll do our best attempt. Nothing's ever the perfect, but I would like to just at least afford some level of opportunity for that avenue of participation. So thanks for talking that through, and we can talk a little bit about it during the committee report. Did you have another thought, Lisa?
No, Jeremy has his hand raised.
Well, thank you. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. So he can come in. I would take his input.
Jeremy should be all set.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have input about this?
Yeah, so just a little bit of historical input, kind of mirroring what Brad said. We've tried it a number of ways over the years, including my first budget cycle many years ago. We did a very exhaustive, full, open process presenting everything with it being open to everyone. And I think there's a balance to be found. Like Brad said, I think there's value in allowing community input for transparency. But the process we did when everything was completely full open, not just open meeting, but full participation from any community members that came, literally was several weekends that were full days. So, I wouldn't want to see us get to that point. And I do think that if we're going to have some active representation from Mashpee, that we probably need to be fair to the other towns as well. But I think there's a balance that can be found. And I guess that's all I had to say.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, you all have the experience with this. I don't, so I value your experiences and what that can mean for shaping the future for certain. And we'll proceed on this, and hopefully, by the September timeframe, end of September, we'll have this ironed out and the participation strategy in place, so that as we move in those late fall meetings, we have that open and active. So I'm going to stop share, unless
So Kim, this, just to reiterate, so that the public is clear too, this would be seeking a representative from each town.
yes, yeah, I
Okay.
feel. I mean, that's my opinion.
Okay.
For a committee, others might feel differently, but I feel if we're doing this, that we should allow each community to have a representative participating, because it's non-voting, and because the entire district is impacted by the budget.
And this does not shut off public comment from other people.
Correct.
Other people can still do public comment and come in that way as well. I think we need to be clear on this. This doesn't.
Yes, it does not eliminate the public comment.
Okay.
Kim, if I may, we did receive some feedback last year, and a few constituents were upset that they didn't have the opportunity from the other two towns. So I think it will be well received from all the towns if there's representation, or it's open to all three of our community towns.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Robin. Okay. All right, thanks everyone. So the next part is for from new business. And one of the things that I had asked about was any contracts that are coming up for renewal, transportation being a big one, but ones that we might be able to look at. I look at the budget, and there's lists of contractual services, and I know some of those are special education, some of those are ones that there might not be bargaining around, but I'd like to hear from the administration on what ones are coming up that might need some attention, ones that you feel are potential impacts, ones that might go up. I'm just not familiar enough with each of them to know what might be the drivers behind some of those contractual services that are listed in the budget. And before we got too deep into the process, I wanted to hear from you to what we might expect, what we could look at, just have a discussion around those different contracts.
Nancy, do you want to just give the detail on what is left with D-Bus and Fresh Picks Whitson's? I think those are really the two big ones that are coming up.
Yeah, Fresh Picks contract will expire at the end of next June. It'll be the 5th year. We did 1 year with four optional renewals, so we continued for 4 years beyond the original contract. So we will be going out to request for proposal for the Fresh Picks contract. Last time we did this, I believe Lisa served on it.
Yeah,
and
I did.
you did. And we did a review of the vendors as they submitted their request for proposals and made a recommendation and interviewed them and went through that process. So we'll be looking to establish a small committee to do that. I think I would say we don't have to do that immediately, but it should be something before the new year turns that we kind of have a plan in place.
Okay. So for
And sometimes we got samples, Kim. So we have to be careful on how we do that too, because
yes,
yeah.
right.
So
Just to be fair.
That's the one
Yeah,
area that I
to be
can
fair to
helpful in
every-
is, right, is that through all my government grant stuff, I'm really familiar with all of those regulations.
so we need to be
Yes.
above on this. So
So for protocol for who you need, is it just someone from the finance committee that helps you with that, or is it someone from the school committee at large?
I think it could be either, but I think we asked for volunteers.
I think last
Yeah,
time
'cause
We tried to find volunteers to do that. And
it was Lisa and June McNeil, I believe,
Yes.
last time.
So you had two people.
and then we went to the custodial staff and they helped some to give us their input on things. Yeah. It was a good committee. I mean,
Okay.
it was June and I did not take part in the food. But other people did get food.
Okay. Obviously there's planning, right? I want to get in the report tomorrow, let them know what to expect, because there are some additional members that are now newer than me. So I'm not the newest one, but we've got new folks, and one that has experience with Fresh Picks and the food, so might really be interested in the food going forward. Not to speak for that person, of course, but knowing that that's coming up, I'd like to get your volunteers in place in time to be useful to you. And for that one, and then I wondered about technology, and then we can talk about the D-Bus, is impacts on the costs. Not to bring the national scene here, but with any tariffs and how the tariffs are changing, if we're getting any information yet on how that might affect the bids, if you're hearing anything in the industry, and it might be a little bit too early to know that, but if you did have any feedback from any of your peers, hearing anything about the impact of that on the contracts, I'd like to hear it. And if you haven't, I'd like to just start trying to look into that. Because I've had that in the back of my mind is contracts that are coming up, if they're anything that's impacted by tariffs.
So I can speak to that somewhat, but it's also, the answer is kind of, we're in a watch for the unknowns.
Mhm.
For most of that, we have some vendors that I work with regularly, because even when we do a larger project, usually that involves some ongoing support, because these are complicated systems. So therefore, I have continued conversations with them. There's been a few moments where in purchasing, particularly like heading into this summer, that the prices looked like they were going to change significantly, and then they backed off. I think part of it is the companies not knowing what they're doing. Part of it also is that when one of the big ones this summer was projectors, for instance, the price was going to change so much that I was about to change my entire approach and purchase less. And I suspect I was not alone, because all of a sudden there was a big reversal, and I suspect the companies are trying to figure out, excuse me, figure out their own balance. So no one knows yet, but we are keeping a close watch on it. And it's certainly part of what I go out for larger quotes, something I'm paying attention to.
Okay. I appreciate that. Like I said, I know it's a little bit early with these changes, and we might not know, but if you could just, as you're hearing and learning, if you're hearing other schools' experiences that might be in a different cycle than us, just please do keep us up to date on that, because I think
Mhm.
there's a potential impact there. It's one of those unknowns for us that is out of our control as well. There's a lot that you can do to control spending, and there could be areas that are just really impacted. So I wanted to get that out in front of us pretty early.
From a financial standpoint, I should also point out we are in the somewhat fortunate timing place where we just completed what is probably our most expensive refresh that we do in any cycle, being all of our network switches. We just completed that. There's other projects that are down the line, but that's set, and it's set for probably in the ballpark of 6 years now. So that doesn't eliminate any potential impacts on us, but it certainly reduces it quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like a little breathing room to see what the future holds there. Okay.
Kim,
Lisa,
I
yes.
know that years ago, Jeremy, that you put together a packet on what you did, or I can't remember what all the packet detailed. I know that it was a big packet, I think a white paper on it. Are you able to supply something like that again to the committee?
For what we've done, like within
Or
the
future plans,
year.
things like that,
I
just
can
so
put
that,
something together.
yeah.
What we're doing is much more expansive than it used to be when I used to put those forward. But if you would like me to put together a presentation or a packet, I can do that.
Well, you think about it, because I know that it takes a lot of work, and I know that you're busy with, you're in charge of a small department that manages a lot of people, or a lot of users, I should say, like all of our users, the students. I don't know. It's
What
just something that may be helpful to the new members of the committee to
Mhm.
understand what all the technology does, and the systems, and the public too.
What I think you might be referencing and kind of listening to you talk it through, I think there was a few years that I did a presentation for school committee, and I need to be a little better moving forward than I was at that time about keeping it fairly brief. But I did a slideshow connected to that, and I could certainly do something like that. I think the benefit of making it a presentation as opposed to just with a slideshow for summary, as opposed to just a packet, is that I can give an opportunity for members to ask questions for further understanding that way. But that's certainly something I can do if you'd like.
Yeah, that may be something that we bring forward, just so that given that we have a lot of new members and they don't know necessarily what your role is, I think that might be helpful.
Absolutely. I can start preparing that.
And we do spend an amount of money in technology that the committee needs to understand as well.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Kim, I just
No.
wanted to.
No, I appreciate that. That's why I wanted to bring this topic forward now, on the contracts and some of the drivers, because they, like you said, they bit of an unknown of how these are going to be impacted by things at the federal level. And like you said, Jeremy is responsible for a lot of pieces of equipment. So while the department itself might be small, the depth of what is covered is pretty expansive. There's a lot of revenue extended on technology, so we want to keep on top of that. So whatever ideas we have, I'm going to lean on you for what you've seen work in the past. And I do like the idea of, when there's presentations, especially around numbers, if there can be a few slides to go along with it, I think that is helpful for folks. So the other key contract, the D bus, I know that just from hearing from you, superintendent, that's a struggle to get in good, valid quotes. That there's a little bit of sort of segmentation of the state with the different companies and seemingly not crossing over territories. So where are things with that contract at this time, and what are ways that we might be able to keep, cost and control of that?
Nancy, do you have the expiration date on that contract?
Yes. We went out to bid in FY24, and the contract year is 3 years, for FY25 being year 1, FY26 year 2, and FY27 is year 3.
Okay.
And this contract has 2 optional renewals for year 4 and 5. And we would probably decide those when we get closer to the end of 27, whether we're going to extend, or sometime before then, before the end of FY27.
So that's a contract that we certainly have time on. I will say that during I would say mid-July, I was part of just a little bit of a push with Representative Scarsdale, another representative from North Shore, and 3 of my regional superintendent colleagues in pushing forth just again to the Senate and the House for them to look at the bidding process and some of the issues that we have with the bidding process, and the fact that we get one bid and that's pretty much it. So I'm not sure where that has gone. I know that our letter has been submitted, but I'm not sure what the next steps are at the state level. But the hope would be is that when we are up for bid again, that something is done with regard to the bidding process for yellow school bus transportation for sure.
And why I think it's important, I mean, obviously it's important in general, but to the finance discussion is, we're starting to prepare the FY27, and that's the last year of the contract. And I don't know what type of escalator clauses or things might be in there. I've got to be more familiar with that particular contract. But the other part that's linked to finance is the request that we had from our last meeting that will come forward in my report tomorrow, or bring it to the whole committee to see if the legislative committee will bring forward discussion and changes with our legislators on the transportation itself for the district schools that is a driver in the expense of the transportation contract.
Mhm.
So hopefully between those two things, I know while it seems early for people listening, that time will pass really quickly from a legislative perspective, where I think the D bus one is unique, that 2 sort of legislative approaches can affect the finances of the transportation. And so that if you remember, superintendent, from the transportation hearing that you spoke at, and I was sitting in on, where the legislator said, well, is full funding the only answer? Or can't, summarizing, of course, can't you come back with a change in the legislation that alleviates some of the demands on regional transportation? And I thought that was a clever way of saying, bring us a proposal. And if we can get some of those changes, maybe that gives some latitude when you go, if you know, because we've got a potentially time to change that before you go to bid with this next contract.
Absolutely.
So any other contracts that we should start thinking about?
Anything else, Nancy?
This is the last, FY26 will be the last year of the van pool contract. That does not have to go out to bid, but we have done that in the past, I think at least once or twice since I've been here. We generally don't get a huge impact on a response. But I'll just bring that up as a conversation that we should probably have. Maybe with Aaron here involved as well. We also will be renewing, presumably, our we have a contract for Blue Cross Blue Shield. I see we have Anne Marie here too. That we wouldn't not know those numbers till much later, but that would be something like in, I don't know, end of the year, maybe February, between there and February.
Nancy, so because it came up in a conversation, the GIC, when we went out to bid for them, or when we were looking at them, we actually got better bids from Blue Cross Blue Shield themselves, right, than going into the GIC, correct? Okay, I want the public to know that, because it's out there in the public that going to the GIC could have saved us money, and it really did not save us money. We got a better bid with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yes.
So that came up in a meeting that, in a public meeting, and I want to make sure that everyone, that it's been stated in our finance meeting that we did get a better contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Not meaning that going forward, we're going to get a better number, but we continue to check these numbers. Correct? And make sure that we're getting the correct things for our people and using it with the community support as well.
Emery, any particular concerns or thoughts that you have or needs that you have from our end? Because that obviously is one of the biggest, it's a big budget driver that you have there.
Exactly, it is. But to reiterate what Lisa said, had we gone with the GIC this year, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, Kim, but I think it was like, it would have been like 10% higher this year. GIC did not have a good year last year.
Well, even though it's a lot of money, I appreciate the extra, work of shopping it around to make sure that you're getting the best deal. That's a significant difference there. Okay, well, I appreciate that overview, and obviously there could be others that you start thinking of, but please, let us know. I want to make sure that we have the right finance committee members, or that Lisa as the chair of the committee and at large, that we can make sure that we have volunteers at the ready to help look at this, and make sure that we're giving the right recommendations over from finance to the general committee on any legislative changes that could help ease the burden. I appreciate that input. The next item that I had, you had already touched upon, Nancy, earlier in the discussion with the filled and unfilled positions. And so just as I said, as the school year gets in, if you could help us understand what that landscape looks like, so that we know, at what levels folks came in at with the hiring process and what impact that had on the budget. So I know that you already have that on your mind because you spoke it before I asked it.
I want to add to that.
Yep.
Brad does give a report in not this coming meeting, but in the September meeting, to like the hires and who has retired. Sometimes we include those, we do it. And this is a good spot to put all of that information in with all of that. We'll just add more details in there. Does that
Okay.
sound okay, Brad?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so Lisa, just so I'm clear, you used to have just like a verbal kind of numbers filled.
No,
filled-
we had a slide. They presented a slide with some of that information, like this is how many people we hired. We've done it different ways.
Okay,
Yeah, I can certainly present in September as far as the positions where people retired and or moved on, and essentially the new people that were brought in, what the cost differential was, if there was one. So that's certainly something that I can present to the committee in September once we've completed the hiring process.
okay. And obviously, as it leads over to this committee, would be the impact of, because if people weren't hired in July and August, positions open, but then if people were hired at the higher end of their range, things of that nature, that might not be reflected in just the numbers in and out. So that would be terrific. And if it's ready for September, that's fantastic. But I know that you're, busy in the hiring and getting school underway. So the
It was,
last, oh, go
it
ahead,
could have been
Lisa.
October too. I don't know. We'll have to look at the schedule. Robin will keep us honest to when that report came out.
Okay. So the next item is tracking income and expenses for activities. I know that this came up at a general school committee meeting, and I just wanted to talk about it here so that we can really get a good understanding of the activities, what's coming in. I know there'll be an impact with one sport team this year, but if there's a way that we know, maybe a few times a year, the number of students participating, what the total stipends are, which I know is in the budget, but kind of pulling those out into a report, and then what it's costing to put on activities and what the revenues are. So if there's a play, what's coming in for receipts. If there's some type of fundraiser or activity, what's coming in, because I can see obviously what's budgeted for the stipends and all that, but what we're not seeing, and I don't think tracking as specific as we might want to, is those revenues coming in from the different activities. And I don't want it to be a process that is really difficult for Nancy or administration. I don't know if that's something that is then handled by the person overseeing the activity. And Lisa, you are very aware of all the different activities at the school and how they run, but just thinking of how do we capture that in a way that can foster our understanding. I know athletics is going out for sponsorships, but it's hard to, on that side, generate revenue or think of maybe ancillary grants if we don't know some of the baselines in a more specific way.
Okay, we can certainly work to generate a report with regard to what's actually coming in for fees, gate receipts, but also looking at the stipends and also looking at student involvement as well. We can look to put a report together a few times a year for the school committee on that.
And I know, Kim, like this last year, because there was great intentions before COVID hit to get all of this rolling and working correctly with activities. Then COVID hit, and then we just wanted kids back. And so there wasn't the push to like charge for activities, getting kids more involved, and now we're finally caught up. And I think it's been hard to track for us too, because given that everyone's running in several directions, we've thinned out several positions. So I think going forward, we can be better at it. But there has been some hiccups because of different things that have happened in the history. So But like Brad said, I think that they are capable of putting a report together a few times a year.
And I know there could be different iterations as we go, as we learn, but even if there's small opportunities, I think there's some opportunities that could be had there. And just for everyone's sort of benefit of my thought process around this, is I had the opportunity because of my work with TEO to visit with the garden club and Carl and tour the gardens and learn about the grants there. And there's other additional grants for engagement and crossover with community engagement. But as you know, when you apply for those things, they want to know kind of what's happening already. And even if it's small dollars, if it can help benefit the programs themselves and the community outreach, the enrichment for the students, I'd like to make sure that the school is in a really good position for those. And there were some grants earlier this year that if they come out again next year, the school would be in a good spot. And I'm sure that there's others as I learn more and can start looking at some of those other grant opportunities and kind of crossover of programs. I'd love to just see, because it seems like with the youth programming that even a few $1,000s here or there can make a difference for some of the clubs and teams. So I don't want to make it a ton of work, but I'd like to be able to start getting that information so that if I can, as a committee member, be helpful because of my professional work, I'd like to be able to do that and see who else can, help with that process too.
Well, and I know that I've talked maybe with Brad about it, is sometimes it's hard to find advisories for these things that we ask because of people's busy schedules, raising families, different things. And so that has been tricky in getting, and student involvement in some of it as well, which impacts the budget in different ways. So,
Okay.
but
Well, as we move forward, open to hearing any thoughts and ideas on what that could look like and how we can work, while the job of the school committee is obviously the policy piece and the funding, if there's a way that we can help make more opportunities for students, obviously, I'd love to be able to do that.
sounds good, Kim.
Okay. Does anyone have any other thoughts, comments, questions that we need to review? Next meetings?
Brad, Nancy, do you have any proposals for next meetings or when you'd like to meet again?
I would say a couple weeks. I just need to go to the calendar.
Well, and with the start of school, like I totally understand how busy you guys are. So we want to be conscientious of all of your time.
What about like Monday, September 1st? I don't know how that would work for everyone. That'll be after school has started.
Isn't that Labor Day? I think Labor Day is
Oh,
early.
that's Labor Day. I'm sorry. Yeah. How about Tuesday?
That's why you have a really good clean calendar.
Yes, it's wide open. It's so early this year. I'm not used to it being that early. What
Brad,
about
you
the
can meet. You
Yeah.
meet on that day. You go ahead. Did you
Would
say
Tues-
September 2nd? I think.
Nope, that's
Oh.
not. I'm looking at the days. That wouldn't work either. Would September 3rd or 4th work?
Either of those work for me.
And that might be good because the budget summit is Monday, the 15th.
Yes.
So if both of those are good, maybe we should defer setting this till tomorrow night during the finance committee report when we have the two other members, or can
Yes.
I can do that by email. But
You can do that by email
Yeah.
and get their input, and then we can see if they're available the 3rd or the 4th.
Okay,
Sounds good.
at 9 o'clock, Superintendent?
Yes, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
and I will second that.
Oops, hang on, hang on.
Oh.
Chuck did raise his hand.
Okay.
I just saw, and did you want
Oh,
input?
yes. Yes, public comment. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna
We're
reverse.
gonna, we're gonna reverse.
Yep. He should be able to go. He should be able to talk. Chuck.
Just if there's any estimates on the uncertified E&D funds or reserves going into fiscal 26 from 25? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're
Yep, we can hear you.
asking for the encumbrances.
No, the excess and deficiency amounts.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick update. We just shared our FY25 ending balance, which was just about almost 2.9 million. And we have about a good amount in revenues because of the return of the Minuteman Neshoba funds. So we should be north of 3 million for sure. For the certified E&D. Again, I have to submit it all and get approval,
Yeah,
but
understood.
so.
Does that include any of the supplemental budget approvals from the last Senate meeting, or is that just
No, because, well, it includes whatever the final transportation number was, which is actually less than our budget, so I don't believe it's affecting those numbers directly.
And do you guys have an estimate on what the impact of the supplemental budget and the changes that the Senate and House gave for the final budget? Do you know what type of revenue that's going to be generated for fiscal 26?
Yes, I have that. One of the issues that we ran into with the FY26 final budget is that they did increase like the Chapter 70 funding for our district.
Yeah.
They also increased our assessments in the area of school choice and charter school. So our budget.
Just wanted to let everyone in the building know that the people are testing the fire alarm today, so it might be going on and off for.
Chuck, I think
Sorry.
they're all in the central office, so.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of an interruption. So anyway, the assessments were increased, which we do not have enough in our budget to cover those new assessment numbers. So between the money up and the money down, there's not a huge savings right now that we're able to adjust the FY26 budget at this time.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that, Nancy. Thank
Sure.
you.
Yep.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Now I will go ahead and take the motion to adjourn,
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
and I second that. And I'll do a roll call. Lisa Martin,
Yes,
Kim Craven, yes.
thank you, everyone.
Really appreciate it.